For years, a heartbroken billionaire believed his only son was born completely blind. He spent a fortune searching for a cure, trusted every expert, and followed every treatment without success. But everything changed when a new maid was hired. Quietly observing what others ignored, she began to suspect something wasn't right. What she discovered would not only uncover a shocking truth about the boy's condition, but also reveal a hidden scheme that had kept the child in darkness for years. Before we continue with this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Oh, and don't forget to comment below where you're watching us from. We love to know that. William Lancaster, a billionaire, lived completely alone in a massive and luxurious mansion. The house was far from the city and surrounded by tall fences, security cameras, and silence. Since the death of his wife, William rarely left the property. His days followed the same routine, always quiet and isolated. Every room in the mansion was perfect, clean, and organized, but there was no sense of warmth or happiness. The lights were always dim, and the air felt heavy. William spent most of his time inside his office, staring at old photos and thinking about the past. His only companion was his young son, Leo. But Leo wasn't like other children. From the moment he was born, doctors said he was blind. William never fully accepted this. He hoped something would change. He kept telling himself that someday Leo would look at him, recognize him, or give any sign of emotion. But that day never came. Leo was a quiet boy. He didn't cry, didn't laugh, and didn't speak a single word. Every day he sat in the same chair in the living room, his body completely still. His eyes were always open, but they never followed anything. It was as if he was trapped in his own world, far from everyone else. William often sat near him, watching and waiting. Sometimes he tried talking to Leo, asking questions, telling stories, or describing the room, but Leo never reacted. His face didn't change. His hands didn't move. Nothing happened. William felt helpless. He couldn't understand what was going on inside his son's mind. Was Leo aware of his surroundings? Did he feel anything? William wanted to believe he did, but every passing day made it harder to keep that hope alive. The silence between them was louder than words. Desperate to help Leo, William tried everything he could. He brought in the best doctors and specialists from around the world. Some said Leo had a rare condition. Others weren't sure what to think. Tests were done, scans were made, but no one had answers. Still, William didn't give up. He installed special lights in the house, hoping they would help Leo react. He bought custom-made toys that made sounds and vibrations. He filled the house with music, pianos, violins, even recordings of nature. But Leo remained the same. He didn't move when the music played. He didn't turn his head when someone spoke. Not even the sound of birds or the voices of other children on recordings made any difference. William watched closely every time, hoping to catch even the smallest reaction. But Leo just sat there, silent and distant. The staff at the mansion noticed the same thing. The housekeepers, chefs, and security guards always kept their distance, but they couldn't ignore how strange everything felt. Leo never responded to anyone. He didn't show hunger or discomfort. He didn't complain or ask for anything. It was as if he didn't need anything at all. William insisted on providing the best care, hiring private nurses and therapists, but none of them lasted long. They all left after a few weeks, frustrated and confused. Some even said the boy scared them. William never blamed them. Deep down, he knew how hard it was, but he also felt guilty. He kept asking himself if there was something he did wrong, if losing his wife somehow broke Leo too. The grief weighed heavily on him. Every time he looked at Leo, he felt the pain of failure. Even with all the technology and wealth at his fingertips, William couldn't solve the mystery that was his son. He had built a life of success, power, and control, but none of it mattered now. What he wanted most was something simple, a sign that Leo felt something, anything. William spent hours watching old videos of Leo as a baby, searching for expressions or movements he might have missed. He studied every detail of his face, every breath, every blink. Sometimes he would gently touch Leo's hand, hoping for a squeeze or a twitch, but Leo's hand stayed limp. His face remained blank. William wondered if Leo's mind was locked away, aware but unable to respond. Or maybe there was nothing at all. No feelings, no thoughts. The uncertainty tore him apart. It was the one thing he couldn't control. Still, William didn't give up completely. Every morning he followed the same routine. He greeted Leo, described the weather, mentioned the date, and talked about simple things. He played music, placed new toys near him, and kept the room warm and clean. He stayed close, even when there was no reaction. It became a habit, almost a ritual. William told himself it mattered, that somehow Leo could feel the care, even if he didn't show it. But every night, when the house went quiet again, the same question echoed in William's mind. Did Leo feel anything at all? Was there something hidden behind those empty eyes? William lay awake in bed, listening to the silence, wondering if he would ever find the answer. The doubt haunted him more than anything else. And so, life in the mansion remained the same, cold, quiet, and filled with unanswered questions. Rosa had just gone through a painful time in her life. She didn't talk much about it, but her face showed the sadness she carried. Looking for a fresh start, she accepted a job as a housemaid at the Lancaster mansion. On her first day, the driver dropped her off at the large front gate. She was greeted by another staff member and shown around the house. The mansion was huge and clean, but it didn't feel alive. There was no noise, no laughter, no signs of joy. The halls were quiet, and every room looked perfect, but they also felt cold. Rosa noticed that everyone spoke in low voices and avoided eye contact. There was a strange tension in the air. She felt like something was missing. When she asked small questions, people answered with short responses. No one smiled. It didn't take long for her to understand that this wasn't just a job. Something was different here. During her tour, Rosa was introduced to the boy named Leo. He was sitting in a chair by the window, not moving at all. His eyes were open, but they didn't seem to focus on anything. One of the housekeepers whispered, "That's Leo. He's blind since birth." Rosa didn't say anything. She just nodded and continued to observe. Leo didn't look in her direction. He didn't flinch or respond. His body stayed perfectly still. Rosa was told that Leo never spoke, never played, and didn't react to anything. Most of the staff avoided him. They didn't try to talk to him or even come close unless absolutely necessary. Rosa found that strange. Even if he was blind, he was still a child. She wondered what kind of life he had inside this huge, quiet house. No one seemed to include him in anything. He was always alone, always distant, like a statue no one wanted to touch. Rosa didn't try to talk to Leo at first. She didn't want to make him uncomfortable. Instead, she focused on her work, cleaning the kitchen, organizing the storage rooms, dusting the bookshelves. But from time to time, she would glance at Leo. She noticed how he sat in the same spot for hours, always in the same position. But something caught her attention. Once, while she was sweeping the hallway nearby, she saw him slightly move his head, just a little, as if trying to hear something better. Another time, when a glass fell in the dining room and made a loud noise, she thought she saw Leo shift his body a bit. These movements were small and easy to miss. But Rosa was paying attention. She didn't say anything to anyone, but deep inside, she began to believe that maybe Leo wasn't as disconnected as everyone thought. Maybe he was aware of more than they believed. From that day on, Rosa became even more observant. She never pushed Leo or tried to talk to him directly. She simply worked around the house, always with an eye on him. She noticed that he would sometimes move his fingers slowly, when certain songs played on the radio. When footsteps echoed in the hall, he would slightly tilt his head in that direction. Once, when Rosa was folding laundry nearby and softly humming to herself, she thought she saw Leo's lips part for a second. It wasn't a smile or a word, just a tiny movement, but enough to make Rosa stop and think. The rest of the staff didn't seem to notice anything. They still treated Leo like he wasn't really there. But Rosa started to believe there was more happening inside him. She didn't tell anyone what she was seeing. Instead, she made a decision. She would keep watching, carefully, patiently. Rosa also began to notice how the others acted around Leo. They were always nervous. The nurses came in and out quickly, doing their tasks without speaking. The butler avoided the living room when Leo was there. The housekeepers never cleaned near him. It was like they were afraid of him, or worried they might do something wrong. Rosa found this reaction strange. Leo didn't do anything to cause fear. He just sat there, quiet and calm. Rosa felt that treating him like something fragile or broken wasn't helping. She wondered how long he had been treated this way. How could a child grow if no one even tried to connect with him? It didn't make sense. That's when Rosa truly decided to change her approach. She would not ignore him. She would not treat him like glass. She would stay nearby, do her work, and let him know in small ways that someone was paying attention. Rosa continued with this quiet routine. She hummed while working, kept the doors open so Leo could hear the sounds of the house, and made sure to walk slowly near him so he could sense movement. She wasn't trying to force a reaction. She simply wanted to be present. Little by little, she saw more subtle responses. Once, when she placed a tray on the table near Leo, she noticed his hand twitch slightly. Another time, when the vacuum cleaner was running in another room, he turned his head as if following the sound. Rosa stayed calm and didn't mention any of this to anyone. She didn't want others to think she was imagining things, but she wasn't imagining it. Rosa believed Leo wasn't as lost as everyone thought. She just needed to understand his world better. So, she watched, she listened, and she waited. Because Rosa had seen enough to know, Leo was listening, and she was ready to pay attention to every detail. In her first few days at the Lancaster mansion, Rosa made sure to respect the routines that were already in place. She woke up early, completed her tasks one by one, and stayed quiet when she moved around the house. She didn't try to change anything, especially not with Leo. She didn't want to disrupt his routine or make him uncomfortable. She followed the instructions given by the staff and did her best to stay unnoticed. But even as she stayed in the background, she kept observing. She had already noticed some unusual things about Leo, things others seemed to ignore. He wasn't just sitting there for no reason. There were moments, quick and small, when Rosa felt he was aware of her presence. It wasn't anything obvious, but it kept happening. Like when she entered a room and saw his head tilt slightly in her direction, or when she passed by and thought she saw the corner of his mouth lift gently. These small actions started to stand out to her. Leo didn't respond to anyone else. He didn't move when other people walked by. But with Rosa, things seemed different. She never made sudden noises or loud movements. She always spoke softly when she needed to speak at all. Still, Leo sometimes reacted as if he knew she was there. One day, as she organized the shelf near his chair, he turned his head slightly toward her. His eyes didn't focus, but the movement was timed perfectly. She paused and looked at him for a long moment. He didn't move again, but that small action stayed with her. Another time, she dropped a book by accident, and while she quickly picked it up, she noticed Leo's fingers shift for a second, like he heard or felt something. No one else seemed to notice these moments, but Rosa was watching closely, and she was beginning to question what people had told her about him. Even though Rosa didn't talk much, whenever she was near Leo, she spoke to him with kindness. She would say simple things like, "I'm going to clean now," or "I'll be right back." Her voice was calm and never too loud. She wasn't sure if he heard her, but she thought it was better than silence. Over time, she started to feel more comfortable around him. She didn't force conversation. She just made sure he knew she was present. As the days passed, she began to notice a pattern. Whenever she entered the room, Leo would react just a little. His fingers would move, his shoulders would shift, or his head would tilt slightly. It wasn't dramatic, but it was enough to make her wonder. No one else talked to him like this. Maybe the others assumed there was no point, but Rosa was beginning to believe that something deeper was going on, something no one else had tried to understand. Then, one afternoon, something happened that confirmed her suspicion. She was cleaning the living room like usual. Several toys were scattered across the carpet. Most of them were clean and unused, clearly placed there to stimulate Leo, but ignored for days. As Rosa picked up a soft ball and a puzzle block, she glanced at Leo. He looked like he always did, still silent and with his eyes blank, but then she saw his right hand move. Slowly, his fingers stretched toward a small yellow toy car near his side. It wasn't a random twitch. It was a clear attempt to reach the toy. Rosa froze. She watched closely. His fingers didn't grab the car, but they hovered over it. That movement, however small, was enough to make her heart beat faster. This wasn't just a reflex, it was something more. It was an action with a purpose, and that moment changed something inside her. She could no longer believe he was unaware of the world around him. From that point on, Rosa couldn't stop thinking about what she saw. That small movement kept replaying in her mind. She didn't tell anyone. She knew they wouldn't believe her, or they would say it was nothing. But Rosa knew what she had seen. Leo had reached for that toy. Not by chance, not as a random spasm. He knew it was there. He wanted it. She began to question everything people had told her about Leo. Was he really blind? Or was it possible that people had misunderstood him? Maybe he could see, or maybe he sensed things in a way they didn't understand. Rosa started watching even more closely. She tested small things, placing toys a bit closer to him, walking softly behind him, changing the rhythm of her steps. And every time, Leo responded in some subtle way. Rosa wasn't imagining it. There was something there, and for the first time, she allowed a small doubt to grow. Rosa didn't know what this meant yet, but she knew it couldn't be ignored. The more time she spent near Leo, the more she noticed how alert he actually was. She didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe it wasn't about sight. Maybe he just had sharp hearing or strong instincts. But one thing was clear. Leo was not empty inside. He wasn't just sitting there unaware of the world. He was responding to it quietly, in his own way. Rosa kept her observations to herself, but inside her something had changed. She no longer saw Leo the way others did. She no longer accepted the idea that he was completely cut off from everything. That single action, his fingers moving toward the toy, had opened a door. It had planted a silent question in her mind. A question that would not go away. Was everyone wrong about Leo? Was he truly blind? Or had the truth been ignored for far too long? Without saying anything to William or the other staff, Rosa quietly began to change a few things around the house. She didn't do anything drastic or obvious. She didn't want anyone to notice. Each day, she picked one small action, something simple. One morning, she moved a brightly colored toy to a different spot in the room. Another day, she opened the curtains earlier than usual, letting in more sunlight. Later, she delayed opening them to see if anything changed. She wasn't following a plan. She was just curious. She wanted to know how Leo would react. At first, she wasn't sure if it would lead to anything, but then she started to notice something. Leo's head would turn slightly when the curtains opened. When a toy was placed in a new spot, his fingers sometimes reached toward it. It wasn't immediate, but it happened. Rosa didn't say a word about it. She just watched and kept testing. one day at a time. Each reaction from Leo made Rosa more certain that something unusual was happening. One morning, she placed a small red ball closer to the sunlight near the window. As she cleaned the bookshelf across the room, she watched out of the corner of her eye. Slowly, Leo leaned just enough to stretch his arm toward the ball. His fingers brushed against it, and then he touched it again, more deliberately. Rosa didn't interrupt or move. She waited. Leo eventually dropped his hand, but that moment stayed with her. Another time, she adjusted the blinds so that a narrow beam of light hit the middle of the floor. Leo, without warning, turned his head and faced that exact spot. Rosa felt something building inside her. It wasn't just hope anymore, it was a kind of quiet excitement. These weren't random movements. They were responses. Every day, Leo did something small that gave her another reason to believe he wasn't completely disconnected like people said. Rosa began to keep track of all these small actions, not with pen and paper, but in her mind. She remembered the time of day where the object was placed and how Leo reacted. Sometimes he moved his hand, sometimes he turned his head, and other times he paused in front of the light as if he could feel or even see it. These actions weren't loud or dramatic, but Rosa paid close attention to them. She started to build a mental list of what seemed to interest Leo the most. Bright colors, soft light, soft music. He didn't react to everything, but he reacted enough. Rosa still wasn't sure what it all meant. Maybe he wasn't fully blind. Maybe he could see shadows, movement, or light. Or maybe he felt things differently. She didn't know yet, but she couldn't ignore it. Each new reaction made her more certain that Leo was far more aware than people believed. The more Rosa observed, the more confident she became. One afternoon, she placed a row of blocks in a line on the floor. She made sure each one was a different color. She didn't say a word and walked away to dust the nearby furniture. After a few minutes, she turned and saw Leo crouching slightly, his hand slowly reaching for the yellow block. He didn't touch any of the others, just the yellow one. Rosa felt a chill run through her arms. It wasn't fear, it was recognition. Something was happening. Leo wasn't just moving at random. There was choice. There was purpose. Rosa still hadn't told anyone. She wasn't ready. She needed to be sure. But with each new action from Leo, the mystery grew. What was he experiencing? What did he understand? The more questions Rosa had, the more determined she became to keep watching, testing, and learning from every little clue he gave her. Even though she had no formal training or background in special care, Rosa trusted what she saw. She didn't need science to tell her that something was off about the way people described Leo. He wasn't empty. He wasn't unreachable. She believed those things because she watched with attention, with patience, and without judgment. Other people just followed the idea that Leo was completely disconnected, but Rosa didn't accept that anymore. She looked for patterns, for moments of change. She noticed how Leo sat differently when a certain object was nearby. She saw him freeze when light passed over his hands. Sometimes, when she stood behind him and quietly opened a curtain, he would blink or turn his head. Maybe these things meant nothing on their own, but together, they meant something. Rosa didn't know what exactly she was getting closer to. She had no answers yet. Just a quiet, growing certainty that something important was waiting to be discovered. Still, despite all these signs, Rosa had no clear proof. No one else had seen what she had seen. If she tried to explain it, they might laugh or ignore her. Everything she had so far was based on feeling, on instinct, but she couldn't shake the idea that she was close to understanding something about Leo that everyone else had missed. The doubt that once made her hesitate was slowly turning into confidence. She didn't need Leo to speak or make big movements to believe he was present. Every small reaction was enough. Rosa didn't know how long it would take or what she was trying to uncover, but she felt she was on the right path. Something about the way Leo responded to her actions told her that he was still in there, still aware. And even if she couldn't prove it yet, Rosa knew one thing for sure. Leo wasn't as disconnected from the world as they all thought. Rosa had been talking to Leo in a soft voice for several days now. It wasn't a formal plan, just something she felt was right. While cleaning or organizing, she would say short, simple sentences about the things around them. This is a red ball. The curtain is open now. I'm folding the white towel. She never expected an answer. Her voice was always calm and quiet, like she was talking to someone who needed time to listen. She didn't raise her hopes, but she paid close attention to Leo's body, to his face, to his breathing. Sometimes he turned his head a little. Sometimes his fingers moved slowly. She couldn't say for sure if it was because of her words or just coincidence. But still, she kept talking. She believed that maybe, with enough time and enough trust, something could happen. She didn't want to force it. She just wanted to be present and let him know she saw him. Then, something happened that changed everything. It was a normal day. Rosa was in the corner of the living room, folding the cleaning cloths she had just washed. Leo was sitting nearby, in his usual spot. She glanced at him while holding a small towel, and, as always, she spoke softly. "This one is blue." She didn't expect a reaction. She turned to fold the next cloth when suddenly she heard something. It was low, very quiet. At first, she thought she imagined it, but then she looked at Leo. His lips had just moved. She stared at him, unsure. Then she heard it again, barely above a whisper. Blue. He had said it. The word wasn't loud, but it was clear. Leo had repeated what she said. Rosa froze. Her hands stopped moving. She didn't speak right away. She didn't want to scare him or make him uncomfortable. Her heart was racing, but she stayed calm on the outside. Instead of celebrating or reacting with surprise, Rosa slowly sat down next to him. She didn't make a big deal about what had just happened. She didn't want to break the moment. She continued talking in the same soft voice, describing other items near them. "This cloth is white. The chair is wooden. My shoes are black." Leo didn't speak again, but his head turned slightly toward her. His eyes, though still distant, looked like they were trying to focus. Maybe they weren't empty after all. Rosa didn't move too much. She stayed close, letting Leo feel her presence. She didn't ask questions or tell him to repeat anything. She just kept speaking gently, offering him the same calm attention she always had. Deep down, she knew something important had just happened. It was only one word, but it meant everything. For the first time, Leo had responded with language. It was real, it was proof, and it changed the way she saw everything. As Rosa kept speaking, she noticed something else. Leo didn't seem afraid. He wasn't pulling away. He wasn't frozen like before. In fact, he looked more relaxed than usual. His shoulders were not as tense, and his breathing was slower. It was like the moment had opened something inside him, like a tiny door had been pushed open. Rosa stayed by his side for several minutes, speaking about ordinary things, pointing at simple objects, not expecting another word, but hoping he would stay connected. And he did. He didn't speak again that day, but he didn't retreat either. For Rosa, that was enough. She didn't need a conversation. She just needed to know that Leo was there with her, even if just for a short time. Everything felt different now. The silence between them no longer felt empty. It felt full of possibility. Rosa knew something had shifted. Leo had given her a glimpse of the world he kept hidden. Just then, the sound of footsteps came from the hallway. William entered the room, as usual, quiet and serious. Rosa didn't stand up or leave. She stayed seated next to Leo. William walked toward them, glancing at his son, then at Rosa. Leo's body, which had seemed calm a moment ago, stiffened slightly. He didn't say anything. His eyes moved away from Rosa, and for a moment she thought he had gone back to his old self, silent and distant. But then something unexpected happened. As William stepped closer, Leo reached his hand out. Not toward his father, but toward Rosa. His fingers lightly touched her hand. He didn't grab it, just rested his fingertips against it. It was a small gesture, barely noticeable, but Rosa felt it. It was enough. It meant something deep. He was choosing to stay close to her, even with his father in the room. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't pulling away. He was reaching out. That simple touch stayed in Rosa's mind long after the moment passed. She didn't speak about it to William, and he didn't ask. But she knew what it meant. Leo was trying to connect. He wasn't just reacting to sounds or movements. He was making choices. That day, he chose to repeat a word. Later, he chose to rest his hand against hers. These weren't random actions. They were clear signs of something changing. Rosa didn't fully understand how or why, but she didn't need all the answers right now. What mattered was that Leo was showing signs of wanting something: connection, comfort, trust. For the first time, Rosa wasn't just observing patterns or movements. She was part of them. She was inside his world, even if just a little. And as she looked at Leo, still quiet beside her, she knew one thing without a doubt: he wanted this. He wanted her there, and that meant everything. While Rosa was organizing Leo's belongings after his day at school, she followed the same routine as always. She placed his jacket on the hook, checked his lunchbox, and looked through his notebooks for any teacher notes. It was a quiet afternoon. The house was still, and Leo was sitting in the living room like usual. Rosa moved calmly, not expecting anything out of the ordinary. But when she unzipped the front pocket of Leo's small yellow backpack, her hands stopped. Inside, tucked between two folded pieces of paper, was a small plastic bottle. It was white with a printed label wrapped around it. Rosa picked it up and turned it over in her hand. It was an eye drop bottle. The label had a complicated name she didn't recognize and listed a doctor she had never heard of before. She read the instructions: 2 drops daily. That detail made her pause. Why would Leo, a boy believed to be completely blind, need eye drops? Rosa stood still, staring at the bottle. Her mind started spinning. No one had ever mentioned any medication. Not William, not the staff, not the teachers who sent updates from school. There had never been a conversation about treatment or a medical condition that required constant care. Everyone in the house had always spoken as if Leo's blindness was final, unchangeable. But this bottle suggested something else. If Leo was using eye drops every day, it meant someone was treating his eyes. And if someone was treating his eyes, maybe his condition wasn't permanent. Maybe he wasn't as blind as they claimed. Rosa took a deep breath and placed the bottle back in the backpack, making sure no one had seen her. Her heart was beating faster now. This wasn't like the small signs she had been observing before. This wasn't a soft smile or a quiet word. This was real. It was solid. It was something she could hold in her hands. She couldn't ignore it. The eye drops changed everything. Until now, she had only her observations and intuition, tiny reactions, soft movements, and one whispered word. That had been enough to make her curious. But this bottle was different. It was proof that someone was hiding something. Rosa's thoughts raced. Who gave Leo this medicine? Was it recent? Had he been using it for weeks, months? And why hadn't William ever mentioned it? Did he even know? The doctor's name on the label didn't match any of the ones she had heard before. It wasn't the specialist William had brought months ago, nor anyone from the local clinic. The mystery only deepened. Rosa tried to think clearly. If she asked questions now, they would know she had been looking through Leo's things. She couldn't risk that yet. She needed time to think, to plan her next move, but she already knew this was more than just a coincidence. Something was being hidden. That evening, Rosa kept everything to herself. She didn't speak about the discovery. She acted like nothing had happened, but inside she was alert. Every word, every movement from the people around her felt different now. She started to question things she used to accept. Why were there so few medical updates about Leo? Why had no one ever discussed his treatment in detail? Why was the name of the doctor unfamiliar, and why were the instructions so precise? She paid extra attention when William came home, trying to read his expressions. He was quiet, as usual. He didn't mention anything unusual. Rosa wondered if he was hiding something, or if he had been left out too. Maybe someone else was making decisions without him knowing. Maybe there was someone behind the scenes. Rosa had no way of knowing yet. But what she did know was that the boy she thought she was beginning to understand might be part of a much bigger secret. She couldn't let this go. The more she thought about it, the more certain she became. She had to act. For weeks, she'd been watching Leo closely, learning from every small sign, every movement, every reaction. But now, she had something stronger than suspicion. She had a physical object, a clue. She felt a responsibility to protect him, to figure out what was really going on. This wasn't about curiosity anymore. It was about truth, and maybe even danger. Rosa began to make mental notes of everything she needed to check next. The name on the bottle, the doctor's credentials, where the prescription came from. She planned to research quietly, without alerting anyone. She wouldn't confront William, not yet. She needed more information. She needed to be sure. But deep in her chest, she already felt the shift. The story was no longer about a boy disconnected from the world. It was about a truth carefully hidden. And now, Rosa had a reason to dig deeper. Later that night, Rosa sat in her small room. The door closed, her thoughts running non-stop. She replayed every moment from the day over and over in her head. Her instincts told her that the bottle was just the beginning. If Leo was receiving treatment for his eyes, then someone believed there was hope, some chance that he could see, even if only partially. That went against everything she had been told, and it meant that whoever was involved had chosen to keep that hope hidden. Rosa felt a mixture of fear and determination. She didn't know what kind of people she was dealing with, but she knew that Leo trusted her. He had shown her that in his own quiet way. She had seen it in the way he touched her hand, repeated her word, and followed the light. Now she had to protect that trust. She looked at her notes again, then at the small piece of paper where she had copied the doctor's name. She knew exactly what she needed to do. Rosa sat in her room, the small bottle of eye drops resting on the table in front of her. She had written down the name from the label, and now, with her old phone in hand, she began to search for information. The name of the medication wasn't familiar to her, but after reading several articles, forums, and medical notes, she finally understood. The eye drops were not meant for regular long-term use. They contained specific compounds designed to limit how the pupil reacts to light. Normally, these were used in short-term treatments, such as eye exams or temporary conditions. But in Leo's case, the label clearly instructed for daily use. That detail disturbed her. She read further. In children, when used for long periods, the medicine could weaken how the eyes processed light, sometimes even causing a loss of visual response. Rosa felt a deep weight in her chest. If Leo was being treated this way every day, it could explain his entire condition. She couldn't ignore what she had just learned. The pieces were beginning to come together in her mind. For months, people had said that Leo was blind since birth, but that never matched what Rosa had seen. She remembered every reaction he had, every time he followed light, moved toward color, or tilted his head when shadows passed. Now it made sense. If his eyes were being chemically limited every day, it was possible that he had some vision, and the medication was suppressing it. Rosa thought about that for a long time. Why would anyone do this to a child? Who would want to stop him from seeing? The question burned in her thoughts. She checked Leo's routine carefully the next morning. Like always, the nurse entered his room quietly and gave him the drops. Leo never complained. He sat still, accepted the medicine, and went on with his day. It had become normal for him, too normal. That night, Rosa made a decision. She wasn't going to let it continue without answers. She didn't want to create a big scene or accuse anyone yet, but she also couldn't stay silent. She needed to know the truth. So, without telling anyone, she decided to skip the next scheduled dose. When the nurse prepared the drops and left them on the side table for Rosa to handle later, Rosa quietly replaced the bottle with a similar one filled with sterile water. It looked the same, and no one would notice the change immediately. Her hands were shaking slightly, but she didn't stop. She kept telling herself this was necessary. If the medication was affecting Leo's vision, then stopping it just for one day might reveal something important. That night, Rosa barely slept. She kept thinking about what could happen. She wasn't expecting a miracle. She just needed one sign, something real, to confirm that what she suspected was true. The next morning, Rosa watched Leo carefully. She didn't speak or guide him. She just observed from a distance. After breakfast, he stood from the couch quietly. Usually, someone helped him move around. But this time, Leo walked alone. Slowly, he stepped through the hallway, moving with caution but not hesitation. He stopped in front of a window where the sunlight was shining through clearly. Rosa stayed behind, holding her breath. Leo raised his hand and touched the glass. His fingers moved over it, tracing the edge of the window frame. Then he paused and faced the light, standing still. His expression didn't change much, but Rosa saw something in his body. A calmness, a focus. He wasn't acting like a blind child. He wasn't lost or confused. He was connecting with something outside of himself. Rosa knew this wasn't a coincidence. The removal of the drops had made a difference. Leo was responding to light in a way she had never seen before. Rosa stayed quiet, hidden enough not to disturb him. She didn't want to break the moment. Her heart was pounding, but her mind was clear. Everything was falling into place. The medication was not helping Leo. It was holding him back. All this time, he had been living under a false condition. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't something he was born with. Something, or someone, had created this limitation, and for the first time she had proof, but that didn't answer the most important question. Why? Why would a doctor prescribe this for so long? Why would someone insist on this treatment without any public explanation? Rosa couldn't shake the feeling that there was more going on than just a mistake or a misunderstanding. It felt intentional, like someone wanted Leo to remain in the dark, literally and emotionally. She didn't know who, and she didn't know the reason yet. But the idea terrified her more than anything else. Rosa knew she couldn't keep this to herself much longer. She needed to be careful, but she also needed to act. If Leo had been denied his ability to see, then someone had to be responsible. It wasn't just about medicine anymore. It was about control. Rosa remembered William's distant behavior, his silence, the way he never questioned Leo's condition. Was he unaware, or was he part of it? These questions circled in Rosa's head over and over. She watched Leo one more time. He was still at the window, pressing his fingers lightly against the glass, facing the sun. It was the clearest proof she had seen. Her decision was made. She couldn't pretend anymore. The drops were a tool to hide something important. And now that she had removed them, the truth was starting to come forward. Quietly, Rosa stepped back, leaving Leo undisturbed. Her next move had to be careful, but deep down she already knew this was only the beginning. With the eye drops no longer part of Leo's routine, everything started to change. It didn't happen all at once, but little by little, Rosa noticed clear differences. Leo seemed more aware of his surroundings. He no longer just sat still or stared into nothing. His head turned when someone entered the room. He watched when something moved past him. His fingers followed the shadows on the floor, and his eyes reacted to changes in light. Rosa kept her actions quiet. She didn't tell anyone the drops had been stopped, but every day she ran small tests. She wore clothes in bright colors. She held up simple drawings with bold shapes. She moved objects from one place to another to see if Leo would follow them. And he did. His reactions weren't perfect, but they were there. For the first time, Rosa felt like she was really meeting him. He wasn't distant, he wasn't lost, he was waking up. As Rosa continued with her silent experiments, Leo began to do more than react. He started to engage. He pointed at colors, touched different shapes, and sometimes even laughed when Rosa made funny faces or dropped something on purpose. He repeated certain words, she said, especially when they were related to things he could now notice. Red, square, light. Each word gave Rosa more hope. He was not only aware, he was learning. One morning, she spun a yellow pinwheel in front of him. Leo followed its motion with his eyes and clapped his hands. Rosa didn't know whether to cry or celebrate. All this time, he had been capable of seeing, at least partially, and now he was starting to understand what that meant. She continued encouraging him with gentle words and patience. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. Rosa felt proud, but also angry. So much of Leo's life had been held back for no good reason. Then, one afternoon, something happened that took Rosa completely by surprise. She had just entered the room with a basket of laundry when Leo turned toward her and said, "Are you my mother?" The question hit her like a wave. She froze in place, holding the basket in her hands, unsure what to say. No one had ever explained to Leo who she really was. Maybe he didn't know what the word mother meant, or maybe he did, and it meant someone who stayed close, someone who talked to him and held his hand. Rosa felt her throat tighten, but before she could respond, Leo spoke again. "Is there light here?" His voice wasn't loud, but it was filled with something more than curiosity. It was longing. That question was more than a question. It was a sign of deep awareness. Rosa walked over, knelt beside him and wrapped her arms around him. She couldn't hold back the tears. This moment confirmed everything. In that hug, Rosa felt the weight of every silent day Leo had spent disconnected from the world. It wasn't just about light or vision. It was about presence, about being seen and heard. Leo hadn't been invisible by nature. He had been made invisible by a routine, by a decision, by a treatment that kept him numb. Rosa held him tighter, realizing how much he had missed and how much had been stolen from him. His progress now made one thing absolutely clear: the blindness had never been complete. Someone had decided to suppress it, to keep it hidden. Rosa didn't understand why yet, but she knew she couldn't stop now. She had to keep pushing forward. She had to find out who had made that choice and why. It wasn't just about saving Leo's sight anymore. It was about protecting the rest of his life. She couldn't go back to pretending things were normal. She had to act. That night, after Leo had fallen asleep, Rosa went to the drawer where the medications were kept. She had looked through it before, but this time she searched deeper. Tucked underneath an old instruction manual and several empty packages, she found a small stack of papers. They looked like ordinary receipts at first, but when she examined them more closely, her eyes widened. Each receipt showed monthly payments, very high amounts, made out to the same name, the doctor listed on the eye drop bottle. The numbers didn't make sense. It wasn't the cost of common treatment. These were thousands, every single month, without clear explanation. Rosa checked the dates. The payments went back years. Her hands started to shake. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a pattern. The doctor had been getting paid to keep Leo in the dark. Rosa could barely believe it. While the boy sat quietly every day, the person responsible was profiting. The realization made her sick. Rosa carefully folded the papers and hid them inside a notebook. She couldn't risk them being discovered or destroyed. Now, she had more than observations. She had facts. She had dates, names, numbers, and most importantly, she had Leo, laughing, pointing, asking questions. The lie was falling apart piece by piece. Rosa sat in her room, holding the notebook tightly, her mind spinning with what to do next. She couldn't confront anyone yet, but she knew this couldn't go on. Leo deserved a chance to live fully, not trapped by someone else's plan. She looked toward his bedroom door and thought about his question. "Is there light here?" It echoed in her mind over and over. That one sentence had changed everything. Rosa knew what she had to do now. She was no longer just a maid, she was Leo's only defender. And she would make sure that nothing and no one would ever steal his light again. William entered the room quickly, not expecting anything unusual. But what he saw made him stop in his tracks. Rosa was in the middle of the living room with Leo, holding up cards with different colors and shapes. Leo was pointing, smiling, and saying words softly. William watched for a few seconds before stepping forward. His face tightened with confusion and anger. "What is going on here?" he asked sharply. Rosa froze. She had hoped to have more time before facing this moment. She looked at William, trying to find the right words, but they didn't come fast enough. William stepped closer. "Explain. Now." Rosa took a deep breath and pulled the small eye drop bottle from her pocket. She handed it to him and said, "This is what's been keeping Leo from seeing." William frowned, looking at the label. He didn't understand. "These are his eye drops. Prescribed by his doctor." Rosa shook her head slowly and said, "They've been hurting him." She told him about her quiet observations over the last few weeks, about the changes she had seen in Leo once the drops were removed, about the research she had done on the medication. She shared how the compound in the drops suppresses the pupil's ability to respond to light and how, in children, prolonged use can reduce visual perception over time. She showed him the receipts she had found, months and months of expensive payments made to the same doctor with no clear reason. William listened but looked overwhelmed. He kept glancing at the bottle in his hand. "This doesn't make sense," he said. "He's been blind since birth." "That's what I was told." Rosa responded softly. "Maybe that's what you believed. But it isn't true." William looked like he was struggling to accept it. Everything he had thought about his son's condition was now being challenged. His mind was spinning. Then, before William could respond, Leo slowly walked toward him. The room was quiet. William's arms hung by his sides, still holding the bottle. Leo reached out and touched his father's hand, gently. Then, looking up, he said clearly, "I see." The words were soft, but they hit William like a punch to the chest. His mouth fell slightly open. He didn't speak. His eyes moved from Rosa to Leo, then back again. He seemed frozen, unsure how to react. Leo didn't pull away. He stood close to his father, waiting. William finally lowered himself to one knee, staring directly at his son. "You see?" he asked, his voice shaky. Leo nodded. William's eyes filled with tears. He had believed his son would never see. He had accepted that, and now the truth was right in front of him, spoken aloud by Leo himself. The weight of his past decisions came crashing down all at once. William dropped the bottle onto the table nearby and covered his face with both hands. He wasn't just crying, he was breaking. The realization that he had trusted the wrong people for years, followed every instruction without question, and never considered that something could be wrong. It crushed him. Rosa stayed silent. She didn't want to interrupt. This was between father and son now. After a few moments, William looked up. His face was red, his eyes full of pain. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I thought I was doing what was best." Rosa finally stepped closer and said, "We can still make it right." William nodded slowly. He stood, turned to her and said with a serious tone, "We need to find out who's behind this, that doctor. I want every detail, every record. We're going to expose what happened." Rosa agreed. There was no going back now. They had to find the truth and protect Leo from further harm. Later that same day, William made a decision. He called the head housekeeper and the nurse who had been in charge of administering the medication. With a firm voice, he gave a direct order. No one is to give Leo this medicine again. Ever. The staff didn't ask questions. They simply nodded and left. William held the empty drop bottle in his hand and then threw it into the trash with force. Rosa watched quietly from the hallway. She knew this was only the beginning, but it was an important first step. For the first time since she had arrived at the mansion, William seemed fully present, aware of what was happening and willing to act. He no longer looked cold or distant. He looked like a father trying to fix something broken. Rosa felt relief and hope all at once. They weren't alone in this anymore. William had joined her, and together they were going to make sure Leo was never left in the dark again. That evening, as the house settled into quiet, William sat on the couch while Leo played nearby. He didn't say much, just watched his son closely. Leo moved toward the window and looked at the fading light outside. William got up and stood beside him. They didn't speak. Then Leo looked up at him. Not past him, not through him, but directly at him. It was a moment William never thought he'd experience. The look in Leo's eyes wasn't confused or distant. It was focused. It was clear. William placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "I see you too," he said, barely above a whisper. Rosa watched from the doorway, her heart full. This was what she had fought for. This was what mattered. The lies were starting to fall apart, and in their place, something new was growing. Truth, trust, and the beginning of a real connection. For the first time, William looked at Leo with true hope, and Leo looked back. The investigation began the very next morning. William wasted no time. He contacted a private legal team, hired researchers, and used his connections to begin digging into everything linked to Dr. Richard Holloway. Rosa provided the receipts, medication labels, and her notes. Over the following days, more and more evidence came to light. The drops prescribed to Leo were not part of a legitimate treatment for any known condition. In fact, their formula had been banned in several countries due to harmful effects on children's vision. The payments William had been making monthly were far beyond standard medical fees, tens of thousands every time, without any insurance coverage or official records. It became clear that Holloway had been running a scheme. He had created a false diagnosis, pushed unnecessary treatment, and used William's desperation as a way to gain access to the Lancaster family fortune. William felt crushed. He had trusted the wrong person for years and unknowingly allowed this to happen. Rosa stayed close to Leo during this time. She didn't talk much about the investigation, but she watched everything unfold. Reporters started to call, legal papers were delivered to the house, and through it all, Leo remained the center of her attention. As the drops were no longer being given, his progress accelerated. He started recognizing letters, asking questions about books, and coloring pictures with bold, confident strokes. Rosa created a space for him to learn safely without pressure. She encouraged him to explore and express himself. He responded quickly, speaking more each day. William, though still shaken, began to spend more time with his son. He sat beside Leo during drawing sessions, helped with words, and even smiled more often. Rosa could see how the bond between father and son was finally beginning to form, not through guilt or fear, but through shared time. For the first time, the mansion didn't feel like a prison. It started to feel like a home. A week later, the news broke. Dr. Richard Holloway had been arrested. Authorities confirmed he'd been involved in multiple fraudulent medical practices, including using fake treatments on children from wealthy families to maintain monthly payments for special care. Leo's case was the one that exposed everything. The press went wild. News articles featured headlines like "Blindness Built on Lies" and "Boy Held in Darkness for Profit." William made a public statement admitting his failure but also promising to make things right, not just for Leo, but for any other families involved. He donated a large sum to medical ethics organizations and vowed to support parents who had been manipulated by similar scams. Rosa stayed away from the cameras, but people began to ask about her. Quietly, she became a symbol of truth and courage. Behind closed doors, she still took care of Leo as she always had, patiently, kindly, and with the same quiet strength that had changed everything. Meanwhile, Leo continued to grow. With every passing day, he became more active, more talkative, more curious. He asked questions about colors, shapes, animals, and the sky. He wanted to go outside more often, to touch the trees, feel the sunlight, and name everything he saw. Rosa introduced him to books, art supplies, music, and puzzles. He loved drawing and spent hours creating scenes with houses, people, and wide-open windows. He began describing his dreams and using words to explain what he felt. William watched in amazement. The boy he thought would never speak or respond was now full of life. Leo's favorite thing to do was draw pictures of people holding hands, standing in front of a bright sun. He always included Rosa in them. He told her stories as he drew, sometimes laughing, sometimes asking for her help with colors. The house, once silent and cold, now echoed with conversation, footsteps, and the sound of hope. Soon after, William decided to hold a small private ceremony at the mansion. It was not a formal event, but a moment of recognition. Friends, family, and even a few trusted journalists were invited. They gathered in the garden, where chairs had been placed in a circle, and Leo's drawings were on display. There was no stage, no speeches prepared. It was simple and honest. People came to see Leo, not the boy they once thought was broken, but the boy who had overcome something cruel. Rosa stood quietly beside Leo, helping him organize his papers. William thanked the guests for coming and shared a few words about what had happened, admitting his pain and his mistakes. But he also thanked Rosa, calling her the person who truly saw Leo when no one else did. Everyone clapped. Leo stood up with one of his drawings in hand. He looked at the people, pointed at Rosa, and said loudly, "She showed me the light." There was silence, not out of shock, but out of deep emotion. Everyone looked at Rosa. She didn't cry, but her eyes filled with tears. Leo turned to her and held her hand. His words weren't rehearsed. They came straight from him. From a child who had been hidden away, now able to speak, see, and feel. William stepped closer and placed his hand on Leo's shoulder, proud and calm. The guests applauded again, this time louder, many with tears in their eyes. There was no doubt anymore. This child had been hurt, misled and silenced, but he had come back, stronger, smiling. The story was no longer about blindness or money or lies. It was about the truth coming forward, about healing, and about the courage of one woman who chose not to look away. This time, when Leo pointed at the light, everyone saw it, and no one would ever forget it. Finally, we've reached the end of this story. I'm extremely happy that you've made it this far. Thank you very much for watching. Comment below what you thought and what was the best or worst part. Don't forget to subscribe until next time.